Good evening. This is the Tuesday, October 24th, regular meeting of the Columbus Borough Planning Board. This meeting is called pursuant to the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act, with adequate and electronic notice of this meeting has been provided by way of publication in the Hunterdon County Democrat and Courier News newspapers on or about January 18th, 2023. In addition, notice of the meeting was posted on the door of the Borough of Flemington Municipal Building located at 38 Park Avenue, and any handicapped accessible entrances there too. Posted on the municipal website, provided to the municipal clerk, and distributed to all persons, if any, requesting copies of the same. This meeting is being recorded with both audio and video and made to the broadcast. This meeting is a judicial proceeding. Any questions or comments must be limited to the issues that are relevant to what the board may legally consider in reaching a decision, and decorum appropriate to a judicial hearing must be maintained at all times. Let's everyone please to rise as you're able for the flag salute. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we call the roll, we have a new member of the board.
The oath of office was already presented to Ms. DeMaio.
Good. So welcome to our new alternate.
Thank you.
Please call the roll.
Mayor Carroll here. Councilwoman Engelhardt is excused. Mr. Campion,
Here.
Mr. Dashner,
Here.
Mr. Levitt,
Here.
Mr. Cook,
Here.
Ms. Giffen is excused. Ms. Weitzman,
Here.
Mr. Hill,
Yes.
Mr. Semino,
Here.
Mr. Eckel,
Here.
Ms. DeMario, here. Mr. Cho,
He mouthed the words here,
okay.
so we'll go with that.
Ms. Kaczynski, here. Mr. Clerico,
Here.
Dennis, here. Mr. Troutman.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, welcome all. We will do it officially when we get to item 11 on the agenda, but if you're here for the Wurtsville Road properties hearing, that will not be tonight. That's going to be continued to a future date. So if you're here for that one, come back at our next meeting in November 14th, but we'll make it official when we get there. So
But it is going to be officially carried.
it will be
to
officially
November.
carried to November 14th, no further notice. But if you're here for that one, we're not getting into it. We're not getting to it tonight. The applicant decided to carry it forward. So November 14th, yes. I think I saw some faces from last go, so I figured I'd save you the trouble of having to sit through a long.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
All right, then item 1 on our agenda this evening is a period for public comments for items not on the agenda. Any member of the public wishing to speak, please raise your hand. Seeing no hands raised in the room or online, we'll go to item 2, mayor comments.
Yes, I just one report to make. I did appear before the freeholders last week at their request, the commissioners, for an update on the master plan and ordinances that they had helped fund last year. Apparently, the planning board got a grant to update the master plan regarding business and economic development. So I did report on the package. I wasn't happy about it, but no, I seriously, I did report on the fact of ordinances that we did, turning a lot of the older zones into more business friendly zones. The update in the VAS district in Park Avenue, Main Street going retail through 4 through 12, and some of the other side roads and the things that we did there. So they seemed very happy about that the grant money was actually not only used for what they wanted, but we actually passed some ordinances to that. That's it.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Engelhardt is not here, so we'll go to item 4 on the agenda, HPC comments.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, we had two approvals at last week's meeting. 7 Dewey Avenue, it's a new extension in the rear. And 8 Dewey Avenue, demolition of an old garage in the back. Eileen sent that to everyone on the board yesterday. That's it.
Item 5 on our agenda is approval of the minutes from our prior meeting of October 3rd, 2023. Those were circulated, and then there was a correction to those already under the HPC section. Can I get a motion and a second on the minutes?
So moved. Second, Serena.
Any corrections, clarifications, questions on the minutes?
Mr. Levitt,
Yes.
Mr. Semino,
Yes.
Mayor Carroll. Mr. Campion,
Yes.
Ashner,
Yes.
Mr. Cook,
Yes.
Ms. Weitzman,
Yes.
Mr. Hill.
Yes.
Item 6 on the agenda is a resolution memorializing action taken by the board regards to application 2023-04 Flemington Realty Partners at 70 Church Street. We do not have that yet.
We have it done. It's been reviewed by the board professionals and applicants council. There were some final changes that need to be made. It's been made, it just didn't make its way over the item.
So we'll have it for the next meeting,
Correct, along with Striker.
the next one too.
Correct.
Okay, so we'll have those two items at our next meeting. No problems there. Our next item on the agenda is item 8, a completeness determination for Bless Wellness LLC, Block 44, Lot 7, 313 US Route 22, minor site plan.
That's the other striker.
No, we did the other striker with
The resolution and
The
the
resolution.
discussion.
the discussion I have is 9.
Yeah.
Do we want to do the discussion? You know what? Is there?
I'm recused from that, so we can do the Bless Wellness.
Yeah, we're gonna, it's after, sorry.
It's different on this one.
Okay, yeah, we're gonna do Bless Wellness is what we're doing, is what I've got in front of me, which is the one that was published. Which is the agenda order that went out to everybody, because I want to follow the rules here.
I did have to, the one that was out today, just distributed, let me just double check.
Yeah, the one that was distributed in front of everybody has Striker before wellness, but we can entertain.
No. If the agenda that's out there has Striker next, we're gonna go to Striker next. That's fine. I must have
I'm
printed
okay
out.
with it.
I just printed out an older version of it. I think is what it is.
Okay, I just want to double check to make sure. It's already.
I'm looking at the one that was.
So, no.
I don't know which one of these.
The one that is on the website
Yes.
is, Bless Wellness is first and then Striker.
So we're gonna go with the one that was published on the website, right, attorney? Yes, good. Published on the website.
That, absolutely.
All right, so we're gonna do the completeness hearing for Bless
Sorry about
Wellness first, okay. So who's here for that?
So these are online.
Online, oh, I got a hand online, sorry, I missed that. All right. That's what- So, Mr. Pello, if you could unmute yourself and introduce yourself for the board.
Good evening. My name is Lawrence Escatello. I'm an attorney with the law firm of O'Toole Scrivo. I am here representing Bless Wellness LLC.
Okay, so we have this is a determination for completeness. We do have Bob Thurico's letter of October 19th, 2023. So Bob, maybe you can go through that.
Yeah, so I outlined the documentation we received. On the first and second pages, the completeness items. Well, the first one kind of deals, this is an existing site similar to the Burger King site that the board heard a number of years ago. It'd be a reoccupancy of a building that's currently unoccupied. It was previously 25 burgers, I believe was the last tenant in here. And it's a conditional use application. Some of these items relate to the survey of the property, title on the property. There are a number of easements, a number of utilities that traverse the property. The one I was kind of somewhat concerned with is a borough sewer line that traverses the property. Excuse me, the survey, the copy of which we have is not signed or sealed, but they can certainly address that. Did not associate any kind of a right of way with that easement. So I was asking for some background title information. I think we need to, especially on site where we have existing public infrastructure, that maybe it's not properly recorded or whatever. I think we need to find out factually what's actually there. So when we do the site plan, we can make some recommendations. Either the site plan will be updated to reflect something that's actually recorded, or we can establish something as part of the recording of the or part of the processing of the application. There was an issue with the delinquent utility payments, but I understood that was taken care of.
Yes, it's my understanding that that has been taken care of.
So yeah, that's item 11 on there. I believe it's been taken care of. You just need confirmation on that. There's also, and perhaps the applicant can explain this a little bit better. The site plan was submitted as part of this application to define I took it to be a leased area around the building where they're defining an area of parking that's associated with this application. And it's just graphic on the plan. I said if it's actually something that's associated with this particular unit, that it should be described, it should meet some bounds, be something a little more definitive than just a line on a piece of paper. But again, I'm not exactly sure from what we received if the applicant is only leasing the building and the parking that's on the site is in common with the other two users on the property. And there's the Burger King located out front, and there's the Prohibition Center, which is actually Raritan Township. They all share a common access and parking area and whatnot. So I was basically indicating that if part of what the board's reviewing here as part of this application is site-related improvements, albeit lighting, landscaping, whatever they may have to do within the site, if that's part of the lease component, it needs to be defined. And if it's not that, then I think we just need to know what it is.
Sure, I can address that quickly. And Mr. Clerico is right. The parking is common with the Burger King and the other buildings on the site. So parking is common. The only thing that Bless Wellness is leasing is the building. So we don't think it's warranted to have a meets and bounds description of the parking area in the building. We think that goes a little bit beyond what's required for this type of application.
And just for clarification, then, is there any reason to define a parking area associated with this application?
Well, we wanted to make clear to the board, parking frequently becomes an issue on sites, particularly with more than one building. So we wanted to be sure, or we wanted to be able to make clear to the board that there was sufficient parking in the area around the building, and in fact, excess parking, we believe, than what is required for this type of use, and we wanted to make that clear to the board so that that didn't become an issue further down the line.
Part of the review of this, I'm thinking that the board is going to look at this, and we haven't looked in detail, but given the condition of the site, I think we're going to probably look at this similar to we looked at Burger King, where there was upgrades to lighting, and again, that I defer later on as we get to here, to defer to Beth and stuff on lighting landscape, but I'm assuming we're going to get into that. This applicant, based on they have, even though they're just leasing the building, they would have the ability to do improvements to the site if that became necessary. That was the question.
Oh, I'm sorry. I believe so. I'd have to consult with my client, but I do not. I would imagine that limited improvements to the parking lot, landscaping, lighting would not be an issue. But once we get through completeness, we can discuss that formally with the board in connection with a full public meeting.
I believe the owner of the property has consented to the filing of the application, but again, I'm just trying to get jurisdictional limits down, that who has authority to approve what, when, and where, that kind of thing, so. So the meets and bounds, that would not be required, and my item 19 and 20 won't be required. Again, as part of our review, I think we'll have to discern the fact that they're distinguishing something separate from the rest of the site is really meaningless, because the site is the site. Item 27, they were requesting a waiver. Oh, again, it goes back to the title deed restrictions and whatnot. I think if they give us a copy of their title search on this, that would address item 27, as it will item 3 and 19 and 20, or 19 and 21 are off the table because they're not defining the lease area. The rest of these are, again, existing easements, dedicated for public and private. Again, that's gonna go to the issue of the title, and especially as it relates to the sewer line that traverses the property. Environmental features, they were requesting a waiver. I was recommending the board to grant that. Item 42. Existing right of ways within, on and within 200 feet. I was basically saying they can do it a partial waiver, because if we don't need to stand 250 on the property, and a temporary waiver as it relates to anything on the particular site itself. Again, it goes back to the issue of the sewer easement. 53 was spot and finish grades. I was recommending we could do that as a partial waiver, but I was pointing out that we have some handicap spots here. And we are, as part of this review, going to have to determine if they're compliant, similar to what we did with the Rite Aid application. And we're going to probably need some information, additional information in order to do that. Item 58, again, lighting. I was recommending a temporary waiver unless Beth feels she needs to see something up front. Similar with landscaping, I was going to recommend a temporary waiver, again, unless Beth feels she needs to see something up front. Right now, there's nothing in the plan that tells us anything about lighting or landscaping.
I'm comfortable.
I'm comfortable with the temporary waiver, particularly knowing that the applicants on the meeting tonight and here for their main concerns regarding the condition of those improvements.
Site identification signs, again, I was recommending a temporary waiver, deferring to Jay. There's obviously circulation issues, some one-way aisles. There's a drive-through facility that was associated with the former, I think this was originally a Friendly's, but it's been a number.
There's a Pizza Hut.
Well, I think before I actually have a plan that said it was a Friendly's. Yeah.
It's the red
It was on
one.
scroll paper or something.
You're right, Bob.
In any event, there's a drive-through. They're not using it as part of their operation, but there was an indication they were going to convert it into a loading space or something. So, again, I was going to recommend this temporary waiver unless Jay feels otherwise.
I can review the directional signage and the site distance as part of the review of the application.
Next one was site triangles. I recommend a temporary waiver. We can look at the site and see if there's any necessity for that. They gave us architectural floor plan, but not building elevations. They gave us photographs of the building. I personally don't have a need to see that, but I guess unless the board feels they need to see it. But that would be a waiver. 69 was site plan, but they're not proposing any signs. As part of this, I was recommending that be a waiver. Again, if they were proposing a sign that required relief, they'd have to come before the board, but for now, I think we could take that as a waiver. And they're not showing the actual building envelope. Now, they're not building any buildings here, so I felt we could do that as a waiver. They have building offset dimensions. There's on the envelope. So I was recommending a waiver. So I think the only one we got rid of was the confirmation, the payment of the 1 fee, which was item thank you. And 19 and 21, since they're not defining the leased area for parking on here. And that would be 11, 19, and 21. The rest of these are you're in agreement, and you would just take the action outlined on the last page, which was under items 1, 2, 3. The one issue that I thought we really need to see is some sort of title search, the documentation associated with that.
So the title search would, from what I'm understanding, would not only solve item 3, it would also address 27 and 28, right? To see what other restrictions and needs and comments on it. Is this something that your recommendation is that it's incomplete until we see those things?
Again, we have a survey. It has a lot of information on it. But I'm not sure it was based on a title search, and I'm not sure. The main concern here is with the public sewer line. There could very well be other, with a title search, you might find other restrictions on the property as well. I don't know that we will or we won't. But my main concern, the main reason for asking for it was I see that, existing borough sewer line, that the survey says there's no easement associated.
Mr. Chairman, we have in the past, when we look at temporary waivers, deemed it
Could you
complete.
use the microphone, please?
When we're dealing with temporary waivers, we deem the application complete, subject to receipt of those items and prior to scheduling a hearing. So meaning they're temporarily waived, no public hearing is scheduled until such time as they are provided, and Bob confirms that he has them. And then the regular procedure of review of an application goes forward versus an overall waiver, meaning they don't have to provide them prior to the hearing unless the board asks, or incomplete, meaning if they have to have it before they can even be deemed complete. So we've got a couple of those, so the title could fall within that.
So this would, so 3, 4, and 27 could be satisfied under a temporary waiver, under that kind of scenario?
Assuming, of course, Bob's comfortable with that.
Is Bob comfortable with that?
Yeah, at some point in this process, we're going to need to document whether there is something recorded or not. We're going to need to see what that may or may not be, and then we can deal with that as part of the application.
Is that something the applicant is comfortable with?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we would be much more comfortable with the application being deemed complete and temporary waivers being provided on these items. And we would provide them as soon as we can get this information. We think that is much more warranted than deeming the application incomplete.
Okay, just understand that we would not schedule a hearing until our board professional is satisfied that those things were in receipt.
We understand that. We think that we can get this information in relatively quickly, and we think that we could get it in and be ready to be heard at the second meeting date in November. We're throwing that out there because we think we can accomplish all this, and we know we would not want to get too far ahead or too far delayed in our approval process. So we'd like to put that before the board and open that to the board for its consideration and that kind of a timeline.
Had situations where board is deemed it complete and granted these waivers, and then we have to ask for extensions upon extensions. And I just, but if the applicant feels it's up to the board.
Okay.
I just, my 2 cents.
So what we would be then doing is, I want to go through the whole thing because it's the last page of Bob's letter. We'll be looking for somebody to move to deem it complete, granted 2 waivers of items 36 and 69, temporary waivers 28, 58, 59, 62, permanent waiver for 66, partial and temporary waivers on 42, partial on 53 and 71, a temporary waiver on 61, 3, 4, and 27. That's what do I got that right, Bob? Did I get that?
You lost me.
All right. Will someone make that motion?
I'll move it.
Any further discussion?
Mayor Carroll,
Yes.
Mr. Levitt,
Yes.
Campion,
Abstain.
Joshua,
Yes.
Mr. Cook,
Yes.
Ms. Weitzman,
Yes.
Mr. Hill,
let's move on to someone else.
Mr. Sabino,
Yes.
Mr. Eckel,
Yes.
Yeah, I think Jim dropped, so let's mark him as abstaining because I
Okay.
don't know how much he heard or didn't hear. Okay, so, as quickly as you can, get that stuff in and, just because we have, just two things to keep in mind, obviously the league meetings are coming up in November and there's Thanksgiving in there, so we want to make sure that we don't lose any work days, to get the materials in as quickly as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We will get these items to the board as quickly as we can.
Yeah. And so tentatively for the second meeting in, November, which is the 28th.
yes.
Yeah.
But we're not making any.
No promises, no announcements, no nothing. That's a theoretical maybe. All right. Thank
We
you.
understand and we appreciate the board's courtesies.
Right. All right, so item 9 on the agenda this evening is a kind of clarification. There was a letter sent by Mr. Grunberg dated October 16th, 2023, regards to approval that we just did not too long ago. So folks should be mostly remembering the details. But let me, before you start, we need to promote the applicant, either their panelists. And you can put yes and turn on the video.
And we're just gonna make a note that, Mayor Caro has recused herself from the board of business for the evening.
And and she's not eligible for the other items on the agenda, so it's saying good night.
I have a,
Yes, that's stepping out for now, so I think that she's come with this one, yes. All right.
Do I need to unmute?
You do not, the microphone, standing microphone is what you should.
Great. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Stephen Gruenberg, on behalf of the applicant Douglas Stryker, who is actually the approved applicant for a use variance application to allow a first floor to be used as certain activities that were permitted in the zone, and to have the second floor of the 53 East Main building to be owner occupied as a residential unit. And if you will recall, we kind of struggled during the hearing process about what uses could be done on the first floor. And we were trying to tailor the language to be cognizant of the zone, but also allow Mr. Stryker to market this property for particular uses. And what we came up with was condition B of the resolution, which says the first floor shall be authorized for use as a professional office, barber, beauty shop, or bookstore for operation by no more than 3 individuals, one of which shall be the owner occupant of the second floor residential unit. Mr. Stryker I believe he's under contract, I'm not handling that, for the purchase of the property by a licensed tattoo artist, which we argue falls within the barber beauty shop. It's a professional, they're professionally licensed. But in order to clarify that language in the resolution, we're asking that the resolution just be clarified to be read. I'll just read it as follows. The first floor shall be authorized for use as a professional office, barber, beauty shop, licensed tattoo artist, cosmetology, and other similar uses, or bookstore for operation by no more than 3 individuals, one of which shall be the owner occupant of the second floor residential unit. There's all different types of beauty type and cosmetology type uses. There's people who do, now I'm a guy, so I don't know all this stuff, but the eyebrow things and you know,
I'm just gonna say
earrings.
lots of men do all sorts of these things. I would caution you from going to.
This guy does not know the particulars about eyebrow stuff, or, you know, there's all different types. Let me just back up.
I think that would-
Shut up, but cosmetology type uses that are similar to a beauty shop. Or a barber shop. And I think a professional licensed tattoo artist is also the same type of thing. So we would ask that the resolution be clarified to allow inserting the words licensed tattoo artist, cosmetology, and other similar uses. Still is maintaining the use of the property as being owner occupied with up to 3 employees. And there's still the same similar type of uses on the first floor.
So let me ask Kara this question. This might help us out here. How broad is the existing language in the resolution? Do we need to make an amendment for what is proposed here? Why or why not?
So number one, I would definitely suggest an amendment, because I think that since you were so clear, we should be even more clear now with this change. And there certainly is a mechanism for amending a condition. We've done it before, and I can go through that. Before I get there, we looked specifically at the SIC and NAICS codes the first go round. And bookstores fell under secondhand shops. That's a 5.9. That's a particular 5.942. New books 5.932. Used books. The first two numbers are usually the most controlling. And beauty and barber shops are 7.2s. Beauty's a 7.231. Barber's a 7.241. So tattoos fall under the 7.2s, 7.299. Miscellaneous personal, not elsewhere classified. And it does specifically talk about tattoo parlors, tanning salons, electrolysis.
Thank you.
There you go. And a couple other things, but it falls under that 7.2. Again, we were very specific, so I think to close the loop, we should amend the condition. And to do that, if the board's so inclined, there's a mechanism. Number one, according to section 4055D-12A of the land use code, a notice is required for modification of a significant condition that's been imposed by the board. And case law has shown that significant conditions are something that, if changed, would have affected the board's determination on the matter. So what we've done in the past is we've taken a look at that issue. We've taken a vote of the members of the board that are here that voted on the application in favor of the application, and asked whether or not that particular condition, if amended to include the tattoo parlor, would have affected their decision. If the answer to that is yes, then the applicant would renotice for an amendment of that condition, come back, present after notice to property owners for publication, the reasons for the amendment, and the board would vote.
Who voted yes?
We have Todd Cook, Jeff Dashton, Karen Giffen, Ed Levitt, Anna Weitzman, and Brian Semina.
Okay.
6.
And Karen is not here.
Correct.
So of the 5 that are present,
So I believe I was the most vocal of, at the applicant's request to make it so specific. Because I don't know why we wouldn't just allow whatever was allowed in that zone. That's why we have zones. That's why we have ordinances. So if they want to change it to say tattoo parlor 72.99, I'm fine with that. Electrolysis, I'm fine with that. As long as they're items that are allowed within the zone. And again, I think I was the most vocal of saying, I don't know why we're being so specific, but the applicant, I believe, thought it was in their best interest to make it very tight so that anything else that would come in the future would have to come back.
Now,
So based on that, I'm fine if the applicant wants to add the words tattoo parlor. I would also add the word electronic, whatever the legal language is for $72.99.
including escort service.
Is that what
It is, you don't want to do that.
Do we allow escort services in that zone?
Not specifically.
Okay, well then I wouldn't want to do that.
We're not asking for that, just on the
That's
record.
very clear.
No, as long as it's something that, when we approve it, it's something that it comes back to the board, and we can make a decision for something. I'd rather spell it out, that's fine.
Change your mind. Hannah, do you have, would this have changed your mind? No. She shook her head for the record.
Sorry, no, it would not have changed my mind.
So it feels like there's not a,
And you're okay.
yeah, I'm fine. I don't want an escort service, to be very clear, I just,
Yeah.
no, when you say 729, is that the NAICS code or is that SIC code?
That's the hold on. That's the SIC code.
Yeah, those are like 30 years.
I know they are, but you're not gonna find.
I know.
So that's the
That's why they're.
So in any event, I mean, I think that the reason for pointing that out was that it's in the same classification as what was approved. If there was a request to, let's say, come in for, you know, a 354, then I would say it's a little
Something
bit
is
different.
different.
We're not asking for a contractor's storage yard or something like that.
Correct,
And
correct,
that
which
should-
even though it might be allowed, was clearly outside of the scope of the codes that were
Gotcha.
approved.
Gotcha.
So I think I need a motion in a second, that the condition, if amended to include tattoo parlors, would not have changed your mind with regard to the decision on the application.
If I might interrupt, I asked for licensed tattoo artists, cosmetology and other similar uses would be the language. The cosmetology, I think, falls in with electrolysis
Yes.
and the other type of uses.
So what Kara's asking for is a vote on the record that had the applicants asked for that language that is on page 2 of the letter, your decision would not have changed.
Correct.
So,
So move, Cook.
okay. So you call those names.
Yes, Mr. Cook,
Yes.
Mr. Levitt,
Yes.
Mr. Dashna,
Yes.
Ms. Weitzman,
Yes,
Semino.
Yes.
Okay, so
Now,
now,
part 2.
part 2 is a motion to amend the resolution.
Yep, and then condition number 3B to indicate the first floor shall be authorized for use as a professional office, barber, beauty shop, licensed tattoo artist, cosmetology, and other similar uses, or bookstore for operation by no more than 3 individuals, one of which shall be the owner occupant of the second floor residential unit. All other conditions would remain the same, unchanged, with the exception of that one.
We got a motion for that.
And that is the same five.
Same 5 of us, yeah.
So move, Cook.
Second one. Any other discussion?
Mr. Cook,
Yes.
Mr. Levitt,
Yes.
Mr. Dashna,
Yes.
Ms. Weitzman.
yes,
Very good.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your understanding and courtesy.
All right.
So we'll put the resolution on the next agenda.
On the next agenda, I'll sign it and we'll do all that stuff. All right.
We'll have to adopt it.
Both adopted like we do the other. Okay. All right, item 10 on the agenda this evening is the continuation of the public hearing for Central Station LLC application 2023-05. We do need that. Block 34, lot 7, 37 Mine Street, which is continued from October 3rd, 2023. This is a preliminary and final major site plan with use variances, technical variances, and some waivers. So when we're gonna let our planner come back in. If I'm remembering correctly, kind of completed the testimony with the engineer, or we had heard a lot of testimony from the engineer. To see him sitting there, which means that there might be more testimony from the engineer.
My recollection, Mr. Chairman, is that we completed the testimony of Mr. Lutheran as well as the public questionnaires. I was about to start my architect's testimony and we decided that I was getting a little late. Why don't we I'll continue them tonight? But as a result of some of the discussions at the last meeting, I'd like to recall Mr. Lutheran, provide a couple of different issues before we ask Mr. Powell to come forward.
Not a problem, and obviously, if there's any new testimony on the record, we'll go to questions as we would with any other.
Correct. So, Mr. Ruprecht, you remain under oath unless you want to swear him in.
We usually don't need to swear him in again, but I will ask if we can slide the laptops that he's at the camera shot, and then you both share the microphone so everyone can hear.
I'm going to be sharing.
Let me make sure you got permission to share.
Well, we're gonna do this, um, if you want the recording of the meeting, yeah.
You did not.
But-
I saw it, but I saw the wrong one.
Okay, so it doesn't have to happen yet, but because they're gonna keep going here, so you'll, you review the recording and sign the affidavit, then you can participate, and we need to go down to that number of all the individuals to be able to vote. But you can still feel free to fully participate in questions and discussion and all the rest of it, it's just a matter of the voting.
That's okay, the way I have it set up on the big screen sharing, because it's showing us on there for some reason.
It's fine, it's a little small dimensions, you might want to zoom in, but I think you can roughly see it.
If you close the two menus on the side,
That'll help.
it'll.
Yeah. And then on the right side, where it's the 67 comments, click that X. To the left.
Yeah, I can't get to it there. Oh my gosh. I need a 19-year-old to help me.
That is that's as good as you're gonna get it. I want to show that the entirety of the dimension.
Okay. So, Mr. Roots, why don't you identify this exhibit as a site cross section exhibit? And I think we're up to
We are
A4.
to A. So this is a new exhibit, and did you give us that, Tammy?
site cross section exhibit.
Yeah.
That's right. 24.
What exhibit was that? A4.
And can you please describe for the board what's depicted in this exhibit?
So my office prepared this exhibit to show a cross section through the site, starting with Mine Street on the left-hand side of the screen and going towards the rear of the property through the two back buildings, which would be the barn building, which is closest to the property line, and then the garage, which is a little bit, I guess, maybe about 20 feet, 25 feet away towards the front of the property from the barn building. The shaded gray area, that represents the two proposed building. The smaller shaded area towards the front or the left-hand side of the screen, that is the mixed-use building that we're proposing. This exhibit has been drawn to scale, show the actual height of the building relative to the existing proposed grades on the property. And the 7-unit condominium building is the longer, wider shaded gray area towards the right-hand side or middle of the screen. The two somewhat triangular areas towards the back that are shown just in an outline area, those are to scale renditions of the existing garage, which is the one towards the middle or towards the end of the shaded gray area. The fully open or other building towards the back is that existing barn building. And again, they're all drawn to scale. And the purpose of this exhibit was primarily to depict what someone, if they're standing at the rear of the property, and the way this exhibit has been prepared, if you're standing at about 5 feet beyond the rear property line into the neighboring property, and you're looking up what exactly you would see today relative to what will be there in terms of the new building. And as you can see from this exhibit, if you're standing at the rear of the property looking towards Mine Street, essentially you would be looking at a solid wall of that existing barn building that's located about 4 feet from the rear property line. And in accordance with this exhibit, your actual line of sight, once that barn has been removed, you would now be able to see that the newer building, the larger building, at actually a slightly lower elevation, or your line of sight would have to come down in order for your view from that 5-foot position of the back property line to be blocked by the proposed building.
The existing building in the rear, all the way to the rear property line, is entirely within the rear yard setback, correct?
Correct.
And this line depicts where my cursor is, the rear yard setback, according to the ordinance, correct?
Correct.
And, the proposed building and the proposed height of the building conforms with Flemington Borough's height ordinances, correct?
Correct.
So we don't need any variance for that.
Correct.
But we're trying to answer some of the public's questions about the visual impact that would occur as a result of the proposed development, correct?
Yes.
And as least as it pertains to the rear of the property line, from the existing, as it pertains to the rear property line, actually, the visual impact's gonna be less than what's already existing now.
Correct.
That's it on the visual impact testimony. I'm gonna have another exhibit here. You could identify this proposed, this plan as exhibit A5.
So this plan is titled Concept Site Plan, and it's prepared for Block 34, Lot 7, dated September 22nd, 2022.
And this.
22?
22,
September 22nd, 2022.
yes.
And this concept plan reflects a proposed mixed-use 3-story building, with the parking entirely in the rear, correct?
Correct.
And, is this a fully conforming concept plan to the Flemington Borough ordinance?
Yes.
And what type of, mixed use does that provide for?
So originally, when we start the project, the applicant was contemplating one large building towards the front of the property in conformance with all of the building setback requirements for both front, side, and also rear setback. And this building showed, it's a mixed-use building with the ground floor entirely commercial space. And then the upper 2 floors would consist of 8 2-bedroom apartments and 4 1-bedroom apartments for a total of 12 residential units, plus the commercial space on the ground floor. The commercial space and the residential units in totality require 38 parking spaces. This particular design and site layout provides 38 parking spaces.
So this actually is a fully conforming plan that provides for 12 residential units,
Correct.
but that's not what we're proposing, correct?
Correct. The applicant is only proposing 11 residential units with their current proposal before the board.
And in fact, if we apply the EV credits for parking, we might even be able to factor in additional units in this concept plan.
Correct. With the EV credits, we'll create an additional 4 parking spaces on the property, which would allow the applicant to increase the residential units from 12 to 14.
12 to 14 or 12 to 16?
14. No. To 14. 2 more.
Okay.
Sorry.
Anything else?
That's it.
Any other testimony?
No, unless the board has any
I have no other
questions.
questions.
Okay, so questions from our board's professional on the testimony around these 2 exhibits.
Back to the visual.
It's up already.
Thanks.
The building at the rear that you're showing, that building is not gonna be there anymore, right?
Correct.
That building's gonna be gone.
Yes.
Explain again what you're trying to show with this exhibit.
So
The building's not gonna be there. You're gonna see the end of this building. You can see the end of the proposed building that's within the setback here.
Yes.
All right, maybe I missed, I didn't catch what the purpose of this was.
What we were trying to show is if you're standing at the rear of the property and you're looking towards Mine Street, essentially what you would be looking at based on what exists right now. So for you to see essentially anything beyond the building directly in front of you, you'd have to stand and pretty much look at an angle up into the sky. Whereas the new building is going to be set much further back than the existing building. So if you're standing at the same location, looking towards Mine Street, you're going to see a much larger open space in front of you.
Any other questions from the board's professionals?
I have a question. Let me start with the other plan, the by right plan that you did. I just wanted to confirm, you said that was fully conforming. Can you confirm that that means that all the residential units are on the second story?
Yes, all the residential units are on the second or third stories.
Okay. And so I just want to be clear, your testimony is that because I can't verify it at this moment. But your testimony is that that is a compliant front yard setback, side yard setback, rear yard setback, building height, and impervious cover, excluding, for the board's edification, excluding that section 2637, which is the reduction in impervious cover.
Correct.
In regard to the other plan, the visual impact, I don't know that I have questions, but I understand what you're trying to depict, that the rear yard setback is great. I think you're trying to indicate the rear yard setback is greatly increased as a result of the proposed building, or would be greatly increased.
Correct.
But how does the increased building height and architecture of the proposed building impact that visual impact? You know, what is the additional, what's the impact of these additional factors aside from just the setback from the rear property line? I guess, you know, I appreciate that the visual impact of the property may be changed as a result of the increased setback. That makes sense to me. But, and maybe to be fair, it's also a question to the board members for consideration, but I think that the other factors for the visual impact along the rear yard has to also include the architecture, which I know we're getting to for your next witness, but also the increased building height. The setback is an important consideration, but I think there are others that the board will have to consider as well.
Yeah, and this was only to answer questions by the public with respect to the comparison of what is there now to what is being proposed. There have been some questions regarding the how much of an increase in the height if you're bringing in soil and raising the level. So what it's going to look like in terms of aesthetics is going to be provided by Mr. Kyle from an architectural standpoint. The only purpose of this was to show that, quite honestly, if you're at the back of that property line, there's less of a visual impact because all you would see would be that existing building in front of your face. But you know, we are compliant with the height standard for the borough's height ordinances, but all that in terms of aesthetics, I think will be provided by Mr. Kyle.
Understood. Thank you.
Questions from members of the board?
So I'll ask, which on the diagram that's up on the screen now. You testified that this was to answer questions from the public about what they could potentially see, but you're only answering it from the rear of the property, correct? You do not have an example of what would be visible from, say, your house. From the houses on Funhouse Street. You're only showing, right? This is all you have.
Correct.
Okay, and on the other plan, if it was fully compliant, even though there were more apartments, is it fully compliant, including a buffer zone?
No, we do not have, the other plan does not have the 25-foot buffer to rear.
So neither plan at this point has the required buffer zone to shield what you could potentially see from one property to the other.
Correct.
And the height of the proposed building is not in question. It is fully compliant with what the ordinance allows.
Yes.
Can you put up the concept plans? Can I just ask a really, this can sound like a naive question? Why are we seeing this?
You're gonna hear from our planner as to the reasons why. It deals with the affordable housing issue. So, I'd like to defer the answer to that question to, Mr. Block.
Okay, because I'm gonna ask it again, because when we get there, because it seems weird to present something that you're not proposing.
Yeah, but there's a reason why.
Okay.
I mean, I can, you know.
No, I don't wanna ruin the drama of the test plan. It just seems a little odd to say, here's something that fully conforms that we're not building, but I will trust the process.
There's a reason why. It's like a court case where you're building up to the big finale.
Okay. It just seemed a little, okay, leave it at that. Any other board members with questions? Okay, members of the public with questions on this testimony from Ms. Ruth Ryan. Please just come up, and you can bring that, let me. Yeah, that's fine. And if you could just identify yourself, bring in that record.
Sure. Brian Beckenbaugh, 22 Vanilla Street. Can we go back to the visual and zoom in on the part at the back and maybe move that over to the left? Because I think that the key part of what you're trying to show is getting kind of lost on the screen. So I just wanted to see that a little bit before I actually ask the question. It was a little hard. So this is the. So currently, from the back of our property, we see.
Could you use the microphones?
They're not gonna be able to hear you.
So currently, from our property at the back, we see a blank face of a barn. So I guess to echo the, it was said, will there be a rendering to show what the actual building would look like from that perspective?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Other questions from members of the public? Please.
Nancy Connolly, 22-1 Canal Street. Is there any renderings that can be produced that will show what the buildings, not so much what, but show the height variance of what you're doing now with versus what is there? That will show what it will look like from the Canal Street. From the backyards of the Canal Street,
We're gonna have an architectural plan to show you what the building looks like from there.
the height difference. I'm talking engineer.
Right.
So that hasn't been taken into consideration.
We don't have a section through all the way from mine to Bonell.
Okay, thank you.
Other members of the public with questions? Okay, thank you. Seeing none, if you could stop sharing. All right.
Call Mr. Kyle.
I honestly don't remember. Did we swear everybody in?
I was looking at right now.
Okay. I thought we did.
He was here last time.
Yeah. Kyle, can you please give the board the benefit of your call?
Graduated from New Jersey Institute of Technology School of Architecture in 1985. I became licensed as a New Jersey architect in September of 1985. I graduated. September 1989, I was licensed. I have active license in New Jersey. Most of my work that I do is residential and light commercial. I testified before. I offer Mr. Kyle as an expert in the field of architecture.
Any questions from our professionals or objections?
I just can't help myself. I just want to make clear that Mr. Kyle is not related to my partner.
Okay, that's fair. We want to, any appearances of conflicts, we want to make sure that those are fair enough, just put out there. That's fair. All right, any other questions from members of the board? Okay, without objection.
So I'm going to share my screen again, and this will be. We can identify this deck for us.
This were part of the submission.
Yeah. We'll go on.
This would be a set or a marketing set.
Correct. Just the architectural presentation for tonight's hearing. Yes. Today's thing. Okay. What day? So October 3rd, 2023. Why don't you take the board through your presentation on the architecture? We want to resolve this. Okay. All right. What's the overall development description? So with downtown shops and a brewery and local restaurants and cafes in the area, Flemington has many elements that can make it a magnet community for a younger population and attractive residences and additional commercial uses that meet the needs of that population and the existing residents are a critical component to continuing the revitalization that's going on in the area. Our vision is to transform the vacant store and underutilized and deteriorated site into a mixed-use multifamily project that both complements and elevates its surroundings and also reinforces the connection between the downtown area and the Stengel revitalization area that's going on now. Starts with a refreshed Main Street streetscape that combines welcome familiarity with fresh outlook. The building facade blends today's design trends with the use of familiar and traditional materials such as brick and smooth clapboard and board and batten sidings. Traditional architectural elements such as trim cornices, double hung windows, and brackets are used to blend this with the surrounding historic architecture. Next, I'd like to give a brief description of each building. So the first one is the building along Vine Street. That's a mixed-use building. The building facing Vine Street is a three-story walk-up mixed-use building. The first floor is comprised of 2 commercial spaces, and the second and third floors each have 2 residential units on each floor.
floors 2 and 3 have one bedroom unit and one bedroom unit, one 2-bedroom unit, for a total of 4 residential units in the building. So each floor has 2 units, one being 1 bedroom, one being 2. All residential units have open floor plans. The building footprint is 2,024 square feet. The first and second, on the first and second floor, and the third floor gross area is 2,000 square feet. The width of the building is 69 foot 11 inches, and the depth at its steepest point is 30 foot 2 inches, which would be at the center point of the building going from front to back. The maximum building height is approximately 39 feet 1 inch at the topmost roof peak. At the 2 corners, there are hip roofs at the peak of that point. And that is less than the 40-foot maximum height allowed by the zoning ordinance. The top of the main flat roof, and this roof is flat, going from the highest point of the front to the lowest point in the back. The point along the front wall is 33 feet, and the cornice, the lower cornice that you have, because they're stepped in different heights, is at 33 foot 6 inches, so it's 6 inches higher than the roof beyond it. The one in the center is approximately 2 foot higher, and the corners are the same. So the center and the corners height are the same, and the ones that are kind of in between the center is about 33 foot.
Excuse me, can you move the microphone in front of you? It's hard to hear sometimes. Thank you.
Is that okay?
That's great. Thank you.
Moving on to the multifamily building towards the rear of the property.
So the multifamily building behind the mixed use building incorporates 7 townhouse style units with 2 stories above the garage and entrance. So it's a 3-story building. The footprint of the building in total is 5,600 square feet. The width of the building is 140 feet. That's going from front to back in the on the site plan, and the depth of the building is 38 feet 8 inches. The first floor is comprised of the unit entrance, a 1-car garage, a multi-purpose room, a laundry room, and a utility area. The main floor level it has is the living level, and that has on it the living area, the dining area, the kitchen, powder room, and a closet. And the upper floor has 3 bedrooms with closets, and there's 2 bathrooms. All residential units have open floor plans in this building as well on the main floor. My proposal originally that was submitted to the town had an optional 2-bedroom design. That has been removed, so the optional 2-bedroom design included in the proposal has been removed. All units will be 3-bedroom units. The maximum rear building height is approximately 34 foot 1 from the finished grade to the cornice top, which is less than the 40-foot maximum allowed by the zoning ordinance. The building wall height facing the rear property will be 36 feet from the current grade, and that's similar to what some conversations with the engineer at the last meeting were. So there's a 2-foot, approximately a 2-foot grade change at the back of the property. So accounting for the 34-foot one, you would be at 36 feet from what would be the current grade. This accounts for the raised grade proposed by the engineer.
And let's talk about the mixed use building.
So to go into a little more detail about that, the front building
The first floor is comprised of 2 commercial spaces along Main Street, and the entrance and stairwell for the upper floor residential uses is in the rear of the first floor. Commercial uses shown on the plans are examples only. All uses allowed under the zoning ordinance are potential uses for the commercial space. The commercial spaces in second floor residential units will be ADA accessible according to New Jersey's code. Commercial space number 1 on the left side of the building has a 900 square foot gross floor area. The commercial space number 2 on the right side has a gross square footage of 732 square feet. Ceiling height of the ground floor will be 10 feet. The residential units, there's 2 per floor, and there's 2 floors. So you have one bedroom unit at 756 square feet and 1 2-bedroom unit at 950 square feet on the second floor with a ceiling height of 9 foot. On the third floor, you have one bedroom unit at 769 square feet and 1 2-bedroom unit at 940 square feet. Messing up on the, you go ahead. On the third floor with a ceiling height of 9 foot. The slight changes in square footage have to do with the way some of the bump outs work in the front of the building. 1-bedroom units will each have a main open plan, the dining and kitchen space all open. It'll have 1 bedroom with a walk-in closet and 1 bathroom. There will also be a coat closet as well as in-unit laundry space. The 2-bedroom units will have an open floor plan as well with the living, dining, and kitchen. 2 bedrooms with 1 with a walk-in closet, 1 with a standard closet, and 1 bedroom or 1 bathroom. I'm sorry. There will also be a coat closet as well as the in-unit laundry space. There will also be space for the HVAC units. All residential units will have luxury vinyl tile floors. The primary bedrooms will have a sliding glass door facing Main Street with black aluminum guardrails on the outside. An external mailbox package box for the commercial units and the 4 residential units will be placed on the 6-foot wide rear sidewalk to the right of the rear lobby door. So maybe we can go back to the first floor. Next one, please. So here, that drawing shows one of the things that is you have the stairwell. You have the stairwell for the second and third floor that comes out of the back of the building. To the left of that is the lobby for being able to go into and do the walk up. To the left of that door, there's a sidewalk on the site plan that goes across that entire back area. We would put the mailbox to the far left corner, near the corner of the building. The exterior HVAC equipment will be on the center part of the roof, so it's not visible from the public. Screening will be installed if it's necessary. As far as utilities will comply with the applicable codes and the respective utility companies. Placement of things like meters and things, we will work with them, but they generally are the ones that tell you where you're going to be putting that. Preliminary analysis of fire suppression requirements indicates that sprinklers will not be required for this project. the HVAC in these units in this building will be heat pumps, with condensers that would be in the roof. We can go to the rendering, okay, or the beginning, the one that shows the overall site. When you can- Okay, so in this, we're not talking about that building yet, but in general, the comment is about garbage removal. So in the lower left corner, there is going to be a central dumpster that will be provided within a brick and block enclosure, so that brick would be the same that we're going to be using, on the project. As far as that, private garbage collection would be based on a schedule to be determined. And I think the engineer went through that in detail, how that's going to work. As far as exterior building lighting, what we're looking to do in the front is we have a black signage band that goes across where the various parts of the building are, where the entrances are to the stores. And we would be putting recessed lighting, down lighting inside that band to give a little ambiance and some light beyond what would be coming out of the stores. The rear lobby for the residential units also has a black band cover. It's not going to have any signage on it per se, but that also would have recessed lighting to light up the lobby doors. As far as the materials to be used on the project, we've used a mixture of materials here. We have clapboard and corner boards. We're looking to use fiber cement, smooth clapboard siding with a 6-inch exposer. In the drawings that we submitted, they're painted a hardy plank pearl gray color. Also in the front of the building, there's a board and batten siding, which would be something like an AZAC or similar, and that would be white. And in some instances, it also could be a age-treated color by hardy plank, depending on the rendering. The brick would be a running bond. The color would be, it hasn't been determined yet, but it would be something similar to what is in the rendering. And it would be detail, which hasn't necessarily been put on some of these drawings, around the window and door openings to, add a little more interest to that. And we would look to maybe some of the historic stuff. The cornice trim would also be an engineered polymer AZAC similar, and that would be white in color. The corbels and brackets are also an engineered polymer AZAC. They are black under the sign band and white on the cornices. The railings that are here would be aluminum, and they would be black, and primarily they would be in front of the 4 sliding glass doors that are the upper slope roof on either corner is a composite wood asphalt shingle. It'd be a brown gray color. On either side, you have like a 2-story boarding batten. On top of that is that sticks out a little bit. There's a roof on either side of that. Those shed roofs would be standing seam metal in a black color. And the roof itself, the main building, is a flat roof, and that would be a TPO material, membrane roof, and the color of that would be white. Regarding signage here, again, the signage that was put there was as an example. And the owner is working with a signage consultant to work with himself and the commercial tenants to develop signage based on the Flemington signage ordinances. So that takes care of the front building.
Can I ask one quick question? Is there a elevator in the front building?
No, it's a walkout. So going to the back, whichever. You tell me. We can be there. Okay, forward. Yeah. This is the multifamily building towards the rear of the property. The multifamily residential building has 7 individual units, each with 3 bedrooms and 2.5 baths and a 1-car garage. The building footprint in total is 5,600 square feet, with each unit's footprint being 800 square feet. Each unit has 474 square feet of living space on the ground floor, 778 square feet on the main level, and 778 square feet on the upper level. Ceiling heights for each unit will be 10 feet on the ground floor. For the rearmost unit, so what's happening here is there is a grade change between the left side of the building and the right side of the building of 0.9 to a little less than a foot. So what's going to happen is the first floor or the garage level will change in elevation slightly as it gets closer to the back property line. It will get a little bit taller by 0.9 of a foot. That way, the first floor, the main level and the upper level across all building units will be at the same elevation. That keeps the cornices and the detailing, the garage doors above the garage doors and above the main entrances to be consistent throughout the entire building. The ceiling height will be 10 foot on the ground floor, as I said before. You'd have the main and upper floor ceiling heights are 9 foot. Talking about mailboxes for that, I'm going to show this here. So the external, that this also is going to have an external mailbox and package box for the 7 residential units, and that'll be placed at the edge of the grassy area adjacent to the loading zone, which is if you're looking at this picture, it would be to the right of that box truck between that and that car. So it's tough. There you go. So that's where the mailboxes will be located in that area, and it'll be facing the drive area. Exterior, the HVAC again will be on the center part of the roof, so it's not visible from the public. And if required, for some reason, screening would be installed if it's necessary. On the rear part of each of the units, there will be a concrete patio that is 10 foot wide and 6 foot deep going towards the side property line. That'll be shown, it's not shown in the drawings you have, that'll be shown in an updated plan. And that'll be outside each of the rear sliding doors, which is shown on the plan. There will be a 6 foot high and a 6 foot long screening, fence basically will be placed between the adjacent patios for privacy. A table and 4 chairs and a barbecue grill are what are anticipated on the patio. The lower level will be reconfigured in an updated plan to allow the main floor and the lower floor patio doors to align over each other where they currently do not. A 6 foot by 10 foot or 10 foot wide by 6 foot deep deck would be incorporated over the lower patio, so there's no change in coverage there. There also will be no stair from the main floor deck to the grade. The building height for here, closest to the rear property line, is 34'1" from the finished grade to the top of the cornice. The building height to the existing grade will be approximately 36 feet from the current grade to the top of the cornice. And Eric, he showed before about the property line in the existing building, so we don't have to go over that. As far as utilities, the utilities for this, again, what there'd be gas, electric, and all done through the respective utility companies. The HVAC here will be a gas-fired HVAC unit with condensers on the roof. Parking here was covered by the engineer, but we have a one-car garage, and then there's one space in the driveway that's outside the garage. Exterior lighting here, there would be a switch light, which would be located at the front door, at the rear doors, and a recessed light in the little roof area that is over the garage door. Materials used here, these are the same materials, colors that we have on the front building to keep a continuity between the entire site. So, I mean, I can go through them if you want, but basically it's the same materials and colors. Okay. There's no signage that would be here other than house numbers, so I don't see that as being anything there. One of the questions that came up had to do with historic and the historic nature of where we are. We are in a historic district, so we have something for that. The site is located within the Flemington Historic District, and according to the memorandum on August 24th, 2023, the buildings on the site are classified as either encroaching or non-contributing to the character of the Flemington Historic District. For the most part, the neighboring properties on Mine Street were originally single-family dwellings. Some have since been converted to have commercial uses on the first floor. When compared, and some maybe throughout the entire building. When compared to this property, the neighboring properties are considerably smaller in area, meaning the lots, and the buildings are narrower along the street frontage. The size of their structures are relative to the size of the lots. Not uncommon to design new buildings in historic areas to reference the existing neighboring design without copying it. New buildings should be clearly differentiated from its historic neighbors to allow the character of the historic building to be retained. Our lot is more than twice the size of the neighboring lots. The proportion of our building is in line with the size of the lot and the street wall, which is longer and taller than the neighboring buildings. We incorporate features to reduce the scale of the building wall face while referencing the neighboring structures. So this picture is showing, we'll come back to this one. No, no, I want to go all the way to the back. The third from there. So this is a drawing that is trying to depict what the neighboring houses, and I use the house on the right because those are historic in nature. What's on the left probably won't be there in 5 years. So what I'm trying to show here is that one of the main things that you have here is you have most of the buildings in this part of Mine Street have they have porches there. And the building directly to the right of us doesn't have a porch, but it has a little bit of a canopy. So one of the things that I tried to do there is that we use brick on the first floor in the commercial space. And then we have the signage band that's there that kind of is in line, with what those porches would look like. So that's trying to take an idea of reducing the scale of the overall building by changing the materials and changing and using that signage band at that height, which would, correspond to the feeling as we would not be putting a porch on front of this building. This also shows the middle line that goes through, shows where the gutter line is of most of the buildings that are there. And the shed roof that we have on either side of the center section of the building kind of corresponds with that to have a two-story component to it. The peaks on either side of that are there to, again, that there's the idea that there's asphalt shingle, gable roofs on many of these houses, and so we incorporated those roofs at that point. Now that building height that's mentioned here is at 39 foot 1 inch. That's to the peak of one of those of either one of those hip roofs. The part behind where the cornices are, that's at 33 foot 1 inch. So it's where the cornices are is not too far off, as you can see, from where the peak of some of these other roofs are that are in the neighboring properties.
In other words, while we're close to 39 feet, it's to the peak of those two corners of the building at the peak of the tops of those roofs.
Yes.
The vast majority of the structure is more in keeping
With 33 feet, 33 steps, right?
But the ordinance standard is still 40 feet and we're compliant.
We comply either way. It's a matter of, and those are like 12 by 12 foot squares of roofing that are there. So it's not encompassing the entire length or depth of the building. It's just
That's
in the corner. It's an aesthetic thing.
And does it provide visual interest for the project? Something that is attractive in your mind to present to the public?
I do. It's something that you probably won't see if you're nearby. It's something that you would see from a distance. The front elevation has been designed to break up the larger street wall with small jogs in the walls, which also define individual material locations, which, well, actually, we go to the last one. So we can see there. No, that last one. So, in this, we have the board and batten, and we have the materials that you find throughout, within a 2-block walk of here. So, when we look at things like the cornice, you have 110 Main Street. There's a couple of other buildings out there that are like that, have something very similar. One of the things here to look at too is when we look at what the historic nature of this, you have all these buildings that were houses that were transformed into either staying houses or transformed into something that's partially commercial. When you start looking, and you have to go to Main Street to see that, something that is more of a mixed use building on a lot size that this lot is, you tend to not see things that look like houses. You tend to see more of something not exactly like this, but something with just cornices like at 110 Main Street. And this drawing also depicts the fact that there's within the area, there's board and batten, there's clapboard siding, there's brick, and they're all used in conjunction with each other in a different manner than obviously what I'm showing. The bottom drawing is basically just showing that, you know, on ours, there was a comment about, the aesthetic of the commercial, I guess, windows and the frontage as a whole. And that was just, you know, there's detail that'll be added to the brick that could be similar to that or something different. It would not be painted, but some detail would be added around the windows and doors to add interest to that. We also are using double hung windows, and they're used to reference the double hung windows that are found in most of the neighboring buildings. We've combined the windows in groups of 2 and 3 to give a feeling while in the building of bringing the outside in with larger expanses of glass as opposed to individual small openings or smaller openings. The mutton bars, which are the bars that are in between the panes of glass, will be consistent throughout the project. On these drawings, they are not. So this is a drawing that I had done today. And this one shows all of them being consistent, more in a farmhouse type style. So that would be what we would be looking to do. With the windows, yes. And also the 4 sliding glass doors that are in the front. And that would be all the windows throughout the building on all 4 sides.
That was in response to some HPC comments with respect to the consistency of the window.
Yes. The signage band and the grouping of materials have also been employed to break up the sides of the building as well as the front. So if you look at some of the renderings and the elevations of the side and the rear, you'll see those same materials, maybe in a little less amount, but carried around the entire building. We've borrowed design elements from the neighborhood on mine and Main Street to create a 3-story mixed-use property that we believe will complement its surroundings and also reinforces the connection between the downtown and Stengel revitalization.
So it's fair to say that in designing any new building in a historic district, it's a little tricky to combine both the new and the modern while respecting the historic.
It is, and it's one of the things that is done to employ that. You'll see in many instances where the architecture of the new is completely different, but maybe to scale of what is happening. But it's just a completely different thing because you want to have the architecture of the historic architecture to be different than that. You don't want to take away, and if you start trying to copy it, you'll start to fight with it instead of having something that is unique and different.
Is this your effort to come up with something that respects the historic nature, but at the same time provides visual interest in a more modern way that melds well with the Stengel area and the revitalization of that area?
I believe it does, and I think again you have to address the fact of what is the buildings that are around. You're talking about what are in essence houses, house-sized properties and house-sized buildings. That's not the nature of what this building is, being a mixed-use building.
And this is our proposal, and we like it, we think it's a good thing, but if board members had suggestions in terms of architectural features that they didn't like, or that they wish to see something slightly different, we would entertain that, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yes.
And all these plans, kind of anticipating the question, but you're showing cars and things of that nature, but not trees. It's not your
intention with respect to what's been presented here this evening to reflect the landscaping that's going to be on site?
No, that was something that was being done by the engineer.
And so this, the absence of trees and those islands and those type of things, that's not what ultimately is going to be there. We just didn't incorporate all of those trees and everything in those areas, correct?
Correct. I didn't want to, I wanted the board to see what the buildings were gonna look like, and if we put, those trees there, it would have blocked most of what you would be able to see.
That's all the questions I have for the architect.
Questions from our board's professionals?
Go to your, first floor plan on the front building.
Ground floor plan?
Yes.
Now, every time I try to make it bigger, it goes to a different slide, so I apologize. Let's try one more time. Nope, don't do it.
So the commercial space on the ground floor level here, it's only accessible through doors in the front. What's, you have on your plan, an apartment lobby in the back where you had your mailboxes. You're obviously not putting your mailboxes inside the building anymore.
Correct.
What's the purpose of that lobby?
That's the access to get to the second and third floor.
What's the door that comes off the stairwell right next to it?
An exit door that would have a handle on it. That's for emergency exit. The one that goes to the outside, the other one goes from the stairwell into the lobby.
So there was some question raised about having the loading space in the back and have actually vehicles, commercial vehicles that are providing supplies to the building here, park in the back, and then have to wheel all the way around to the front. Is there any way to get rear access into the commercial space?
That will be difficult because the grade changes at that point. So there's just a grade change between the front of the building and the back of the building.
On the front building?
Yeah.
On the building in the back, well, let's take the building in front. When we look at the front facade.
Front facade?
Yeah. You had sliding glass doors and you have those railings, which I think they're from Juliet's Alpines or whatever. You had that also on the back, the townhouse building in the back, but that's being changed to decks that are on. There's no proposal to do decks on the front of this building.
No, never was.
Okay. Go to the elevations on the rear building. So from a grade differential, you say there's about a 9/10 per foot fall from the building line, the garage on the left to the garage on the right.
It's right. It's slopes towards looking at the drawing. It slopes to the right.
And you said the floors of the buildings on the first, second, and third, and the roof, that's all one elevation. It's one consistent elevation. So the differential in grade is being made up within the garage itself on the front side?
Yes. And
then on the rear of the back house where you exit off onto those patios, the differential in elevation will be made up in way of steps or something like that?
If need be. If need be, because yes, in certain, as you get closer towards the back of the property, you would have to have a step coming in.
And to put into perspective, you have 7 townhouse units on that building. The unit all the way to the right, the 7th unit is the one that's encroaching into the 25 foot or whatever it is setback.
Correct.
That's one of the variants. You're not asking for a height variance.
No.
But you're asking for a building setback variance to have that building intrude into the rear yard setback.
Correct.
And so essentially, if you just went to the 6th unit, I think the 6th unit intrudes slightly, but only about a foot or two, the way this is currently laid out. So it's really the 7th unit that's totally, excuse me, totally within the setback area.
That would be a question for area. It is. It is.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, your questions? No questions. Yeah. Sure.
And I have a couple of
I have one straightforward question for the board. There are a variety of HBC comments that the architect did review, and I just don't know procedurally, we have a representative that's handled each.
Well,
Dennis,
we have
oh,
Dennis who's
okay.
on this board,
Actually-
but
Yeah,
you're the professional.
that's,
I
I'm
would
trying
rather-
to step on folks' toes.
I would rather Dennis can contribute to the conversation when it's time for board discussion and questions. I would think that if you've got questions as a planner, an expert, let's have you ask whatever you want, and if Dennis wants to characterize the HBC discussion, he can certainly follow up, but I'd rather you start the stuff that you think is appropriate.
Okay, thank you. I just don't want to step on anybody's toes. I
No.
appreciate that.
Fair question.
Okay, the first. Oh, thank you. I saw it. I'm look at that. Every so often. Thank you. So the first question I have is not relevant to the HBC. I heard you, or not particularly relevant, I heard you going through the building materials. And one thing I didn't hear was vinyl siding, and I just wanted to put a finer point on that. Is vinyl siding proposed as part of the building materials?
You know, it was meant to be hardy plank or something similar to that. That's a cement pipe.
Okay, thank you. And then as I go through the HPC comments, I guess one of the things I wanted to focus on is in here, they talk about the building height, and to be fair, they certainly do recognize that this is not a height variance, which is not. But they do talk about the architecture of, I think in particular to the front building, but I think it also applies to the rear building as well, with the vertical orientation, which the commentary is that it contributes to the perception of building height. And I was wondering if you could give us some additional commentary as to what considerations you made in order to reduce the reduction or the perception of building height. And I'm asking both in terms of the way the building facade has been designed with vertical versus horizontal segments, and also the distribution of the towers on either end of the mixed-use building, and to what extent that might reduce the perception of building height and help address some of the HPC comments.
So one of the things that, there were a number of things that I employed to try to break up the scale and the size of the building. One was the material choices and how they are. It's not all one color. It's not all one material. Along the streetscape on the lower level is brick. And then you have again that signage band that you know I'm kind of using as a reference to the porches and things that you would find along the other houses that are there. In going in on either side, you have using color as well. You have the white sections on either side that are 2-story. They have a small shed roof on top of them to break up that. So when you start breaking up color and you start breaking up having little ins and outs that change the material, but you know also and you know break up the overall feel of it. The center of the building also sticks out. So it kind of at the ground level, it kind of at the corners is one level, and then when you go in a level, it steps out a foot, and then when you go into the center section, it steps out another foot or so.
I'm sorry, I hate to interrupt you, but can we get the mixed use building? Because I think that's what you're referencing.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, that's fine. So, you know, that's one thing. And then using the windows that are similar to the windows that are found on the street and being double hung and somewhat, I mean, size here is dictated somewhat by code because most of those are bedroom units or windows that are there. So that dictates that as well. Trying to use the cornices and again, not having a straight line all the way across. I know there was a commentary from the HBC about a row house, which I disagree with, but a row house would have individual doors And, you know, everything is very much similar between the different units, and I don't see it here, but, you know, everybody has their opinion. As far as the roofs on either corner, was put there for aesthetic value. It's not, there's no function to it. If that were something that, everybody felt would make a drastic difference to the height, it was something that we would look at. Unless you're far away, it's one of those things that it's like when you're close to that, you're not gonna see that. You're gonna only see it from far away. And when you're far away, it's not gonna have the same perception of being big. So it's more, like I say, it's more of an aesthetic feel that we had. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, I think it does. I think in regards to the tower, or the peaks on the end of the mixed use building, it sounds like it adds to the perception of building height, but I think you're indicating that it's likely gonna be most visible at a distance, perhaps down Line Street or from the rear of the property.
Well, from the rear of the property, I'm not even sure, because by the time if you do another site angle thing, that would have to be done. I'm not sure that you would see that, knowing that that's going to a point on both of those, so it's only one point where it's at that height. You also would see that probably over by Stengel as you're coming down that street and seeing that from over there.
I think there was testimony that you guys are gonna be submitting revised plans. Is that accurate? I'm thinking about the impact of the second story decks and the changes proposed to the rear of the townhouse building. And it's a little hard to evaluate based on the testimony.
We hadn't planned on submitting new plans prior to the board acting on it unless the board's professionals or the board would like to see revised plans before you act on the application.
We're gonna need to see revised plans before we act on the application.
They're going to need to see revised plans before they act on the application.
Let me be clear, I'm not just being flip. There was substantial testimony around the patios and access for maintenance and property management in the last hearing. We're now hearing the addition of the question of the second story deck. I think that because we've heard concerns around visual impact, I think to see all of it together is gonna be something we're gonna need.
Understood.
Yeah.
And if there are other issues that the board has or concerns that the board has while we're revising plans that can be asked of the applicant, that would be a really opportune time to do.
I am certain that once Beth's done with her questions, you're gonna have a bunch of questions from the board and you're gonna have a bunch of questions from the public. So you hopefully will have what you need to do that.
Great.
The last question I have, is I do want to turn things over to the board to share commentary in regards to the architecture. But one of the other comments in the HB report was in regard to the first floor of the mixed use building facing Main Street, expressed concern regarding language, lack of interest in the storefronts generally. I forget the exact descriptor that they use. And I wonder if you've given any thought as to what additional detail might be provided to that first floor to add a little bit more interest to in particular pedestrians and those sitting out front.
Well, again, most of that right now is glass, and then there is brick where the brick is underneath, and that's where on this drawing I'm showing, we can add some brick detailing around the windows areas to enhance that to some degree. There's not a lot of area of brick there in general, so there's only so much that you could do. I could add the mutton bars with the bars in the glass to try to reduce the size of the glass, but that's not really a commercial thing.
And to be fair, I'm not necessarily asking for a reduced area of the glass. I'm thinking about what might be able to be done within the brick or within the window surrounds.
Right, so there would be additional trim, or not trim so much, but I would use brick to pull it out and make like possibly a soldier course, different coursings that are in the brick itself, similar to what, again, I'm not copying that, but what you see there, they have like a sill out of brick, on the bottom, right corner in the gray. So something like that. I don't have enough room there really to do anything, your brick area is only like 2 feet in the corner, so there's not a lot of room there. So I would do something and add some interest around the glass areas in the brick itself.
Thank you. Those are all the questions I have.
Could you stop sharing so that I can see the remote? Easier. They may need you to bring something back up on the screen, but it's a little easier to see everybody. Thanks. I'm gonna go to remote folks first, and then we'll go to folks. Dennis is.
I'm ready. Okay, so it's clear that you guys read the HPC comments. Definitely appreciate that. I'm going to try not to repeat everything that Beth said, but did you really consider the surrounding buildings, with the size, the height, the architectural style? I understand there are houses nearby, but just, the building design with a lot more variety. Did you really consider that? I mean, I don't know where in Flemington there's Juliet balconies on a building that's trying to fit into the historic district with sliding glass doors. So did you really consider more historic architecture with the design, both the front building, but also the back? Because you mentioned, the front building as retail, the back are townhouses. That's housing. So, and that building looks very similar.
It looks similar partly because we wanted to create a continuity between the two different buildings. Again, as you see when the building types that you see on Main Street more, because that's more of a mixed use kind of scenario, you do see the cornices, maybe they're not at all different heights. I use the different heights to try to break the scale down of what would otherwise be a sizable front wall. I'm trying to do things and employ things that would reduce the size, the visual impact and the size of what that is. There's always other alternatives that can be done. I thought that, what I see here, I've seen in town. Again, I'm talking about things like cornices and materials. As far as Juliet balconies, you're correct in that, and that's something that we can look at and address. I agree with that.
You mentioned about seeing the height, and granted, if you're on Main Street, you're probably not going to see the height as much, but there are 2 streets that go towards where that building is, Central Station and Stangl. So do you agree that you're really going to pull up and see that building, which is a lot higher than the surrounding buildings? Do you agree?
It is, the wall face is higher for sure. It's a 3-story building. The other buildings are 2-story, 2.5-story buildings. The building next door to us to the right, when I was out there, we're kind of pretty much on the property line, and I measured that, and that height is about 24, 25 feet from the grade to the underside of where the soffit and the gutter are on the main part of that house, and that corresponds to the shed roof that's on the front of the house, on the front of the 3-story building, the mixed-use building in the front. The building immediately to the right, that same building, has a very shallow roof pitch on it. It is a pitched roof, but it's very shallow. When you look at some of the other buildings that are going down the street, they have a more standard, let's say, hip or gable roof kind of situation. And when you go to the peak of those roofs, if you're also at around 24 feet, you're probably looking at something to be at that peak being around maybe between probably 33 feet, 32, 33 feet. So we're saying that the the lowest part of the cornice that I show on the front of the building is pretty much at 33 feet. Now, obviously, the peaks, those two peaks go up to 39, so, you know, but again, they're a point. It's not a gable that's running the entire length of the building. It's only 2 points that are in the corners of the building.
And at 33 feet, you're 7 feet lower than the height standard, correct?
Correct.
So did you consider though other roof lines when you were designing the building? Did you consider the third floor with a lot more variety, slope roof, gables, dormers?
Well, I mean, if I added the thing is, you add a slope roof and a dormer, you don't have usable space behind much of what that is. And this building is only at its deepest is 30 feet deep. So it's in its depth, it's almost similar to what some of these houses are. But, you know, if we were gonna add a slope roof, we would be, you know, at that point, probably exceeding the height limit. I know what you're saying, where you could come down to the second floor and then start a roof from there, but there'd be no usable space on the third floor. It'd be very little. You wouldn't be able to certainly wouldn't be able to put 2 apartments or 2 units up there.
A slope roof on a size of this building, would that make it so that the third floor would be unusable, or that the height would need to be exceeded in order to have a usable third floor?
Yes. So it
My
was
last,
looked at it. It says, I mean, you know, another option is, you know, to do a mansard type roof. But, you know, in that kind of thing, you're gonna have a living room that has a single window, because if you start doing double windows the way it is here, it's all, there's no roof there. It's, you know, that was something that I did take a look at some point. And the other issue is to get it down close enough to make it substantial enough to bring that height, that gutter line down. That, you know, the issue is that the pitch of those roofs are extreme, and you know, to the point where if you use the front wall as your wall face and then had to come out, you probably have to come out 3 or 4 feet just to be able to get, you know, you know, not having a vertical roof section that's there. It would be, I did some calculation on it. It was something like a 40 pitch roof to do that. And to me, I'd have to start to question the roofing manufacturers as to whether or not something like that, you know, if you're using asphalt shingles, would even be allowed under their warranties.
my last question, and if I misunderstood, I apologize. I thought, was there a comment made that there's gonna be parking in front of the building on mine?
We didn't make that comment. I didn't.
Okay. I thought I heard something about parking in front of mine. Okay, those are all my questions.
Hannah, do you have any questions?
I just had a couple. Could you just elaborate or clarify if there's any proposed, you know, sustainable materials or practices used in this project in the construction at all?
I haven't looked into that to be fair to
Okay.
something I need to look at, but it's not something that I've addressed at this point to say whether or not these materials specifically are or are not, you know.
Mhm. Okay. Could you also, if you want to bring up any of the pictures, could you clarify where the HVAC units would be? Specifically maybe in the front building, and then because I wasn't sure, are they in the back of the second building?
I don't know if there's something that's a roof that you really could see. Oh, you know.
Oh yeah, is it on the roof? Are they on the roof?
Well, yes, they're going to be. I think it's the second one.
Okay, great.
Look at this.
Yeah.
basically, we would be putting them in the center of the roof, so it's farthest away from any point that's there. That would be condensing units in the front building. That's slated to be a heat pump system. So there would be 6 units that would be there that are not huge. And needed to be screened. I testified that we would add screening around it, but I'm not sure with the height of the building that you'd have to be pretty far away to see that. And it's the same thing with the back building as well. Those would, more traditional HVAC units. They would have something. Those units would go on the roof as well. And again, if they needed. They would be.
And how do you get roof access? Is there?
So in the big building, in the front building, there would be a ladder system that would be in the stairwell. That would go up to the roof down and do that. The back building, I would think that would be, with what we would have to do, that would probably be accessed through a ladder outside of the building.
And you're saying, I'm clarifying again, sorry. It wouldn't necessarily, especially in the back building, you're saying it wouldn't be visible from above, like the screening would make it pretty.
Well, again, depending on how far away you are.
Close
enough. Again, if it were visible and that were an issue, we would screen it in a way that would be acceptable to the board.
Okay. Thank you. And then I had one other question, just for the front building, just because the windows are all visible on the main street and everything, is there any kind of proposed, or would you be willing to provide like consistent window shades for the windows there, just to make it, for our curtains for the apartments or the condos?
I don't know that we were getting to that level of.
Okay. No, yeah, I wasn't know if that was something that you considered or not.
Usually that's something.
For some.
Then that might be a little bit difficult for us to control, quite honestly, because if condo.
Okay.
Those people put up their own curtains or shades in their windows.
Okay, I think that's it from me. Thank you.
Please.
I just want to clarify for my notes. I think Dennis had asked a question about whether there was going to be parking in the front. And I'm not sure if I understood where he was talking about and if we got an answer. What's that?
Well, the architect said he
didn't provide any testimony.
I can answer that. There's 2 on-street parking spaces existing along the frontage of this property. So there can be parked cars in front of the building.
That's existing condition.
Existing condition.
Thanks. Could you stop sharing again, just so I can see who's sorry. Makes it a little bit easier. Jim, do you have any questions?
I think the only question I had, I didn't hear any discussion about the height of the buildings to the left of the structure as it's proposed. If I remember correctly, they're all pretty much at most 2-story, but single-story, even the commercial ones. Is there any, I mean, this is going to be the last big building on the block, apparently, and it will be the tallest in comparison to what is at Main Street and coming back. But what's the next building to the left? 1 2-story?
Just a 1-story?
I think they're 1-story. There might be some 2-story toward the back, but I think it's a 1-story building.
All right, so basically there will be a start, I don't want to call it start, but it stops being a big building immediately to the left of the structure there. Or that they're proposing.
No, then. Thanks, Jim. Mike, do you have any questions?
No, I'm good, Jeff. Thank you.
go to the one, if you just look at it, the overtop view. So the front of the building, the grade goes 0.9 feet up, right?
Well, we're talking about the back building for that house. It's not the front building. Put down. So the high point is the part, towards the center of the site. And then
Then you just put in the back of the building, you then put it down. Directly along, you get something of step in each place here.
not in the, there's not gonna be, so what's happening is that the slab, it's just, there's no basement in any of it, so there's the slab that's there, that slab is gonna be on whatever that existing grade is, so in the case of the unit that's closer to the center, that unit might have a ceiling height of 9 foot, and it would get progressively slightly taller as it got to the back, and at the back it will be 10 foot. So the floor of that middle of the ground floor there is gonna match what is going on either side of the building. Now, I have to see the final, because there were some changes to the engineering that they were talking about, so we have to, would work that out so that, we would either, the goal would be to try to make the grade the same on both sides, if that can happen. If it couldn't happen, then we would add a step to the back of the, coming out of the back door, going to that rear patio. The front door, though, would be, there would be no steps, that would be straight.
And then just one more question, the roofing you said, was it supposed to be TP?
TPO, which is a membrane roof.
All right, so what would the life expectancy be on a roof like that? Approximately.
I think I don't have to look, I think it's 20 years. It's a lot of roofing, depends on what grade you pick.
Thank you.
So, although you are not seeking a height variance and your project is completely compliant within the borough guidelines, you did testify that the two peaks on either side of the front building were purely decorative, I think your words, not mine, that add approximately 6 feet of height to either side of the building.
To the front corners, yes.
So theoretically, you could alter those two corners without changing a mansard roof and making the living room smaller, or really without changing the project substantially. You could, as an architect, I don't know what you do, but you could design something different that could lower the massing on either one of those two corners without changing the overall design of the interior.
Yes.
And on the back building, can you, I can't, I don't have a scale on the computer. The last apartment or excuse me, townhouse on the rear building would be precluding you from reaching our setback ordinance. That last building, I know there was some, Mr. Clerico, you went back and forth, you said it's about roughly a foot. Can you strike a measurement for me on how wide that last condo is?
How wide it is?
How wide it is? In other words,
You mean across the rear property line with?
across, in other words, you are asking, the applicant's asking for a variance for a setback. You are about 27 feet shy of that. I am curious to see what that last unit is from a measurement. I think you can scale it.
Each, well, I have it on, it's on the.
Not that one. Yeah, you could scale it from here. But this, you could scale it
Well,
from here.
it's 20 feet. I know that, because 140-foot building and it's 7 units, so it's 20-foot wide building and its depth is 38 foot 8 inches.
Okay, so at 20 feet wide, even if that last townhouse was gone, was removed, you would still require a variance in setback. You're not setback. But it,
Right.
but
Yeah,
it's-
yeah.
Okay, I know it's questioned that. And, thank you. And I'm good. I'm good.
Questions? Questions?
Yeah, I have one question. The lighting that I guess is, going on the front, where like the garage is and everything, front door, of the units,
So-
the townhouses, right?
So the units in the back have switched, they're individually switched for, each owner. And where you're gonna have it is you're gonna have in the front of the building, I would think you would have one, probably a recessed light over the front door. You could also
It'll be
have one.
recessed into the.
Yes, and then over the
Okay.
garage doors, there would probably be two recessed lights there, so it's downlighting, it's not shining out, it's not doing that. The, in the rear, there would be, probably a wall, no, there would be a wall mounted light switched again for the, sliding glass door.
Well, can you tell me whether or not that will also be similar to the area lighting you guys have on the site plans that is, it's fully shielded, cut off, all that kind of stuff?
Well, what I have is recessed to begin with, so it's not gonna, the light doesn't
Yeah, yeah,
come out, so, yeah.
okay, well, I was asking about the.
I don't know
you said
about the site,
wall pack for
Right.
part of it, right?
not on the buildings.
That's it.
Okay, so I got a couple. Have you done work in historic districts before? Is it?
Within Plainfield.
Like, the reason I'm asking is that, yeah, you can't put part of it in the question. What in the proposed design of the front facing mixed use building, to you as a professional architect, evokes Flemington's historic district, particular its period of significance through the Victorian through to the first few decades of the 20th century?
Actually.
I'm saying, because I'm looking at this and it feels like any building I've seen anywhere, everywhere, all at once, and I'm just asking, what makes this building at a key intersection in a revitalizing section of the historic district of town? What makes this building Flemington?
So one of the things that, again, as I mentioned before, is like the size and the scale of what the building is significantly different than what the neighboring houses are, because the uses are different. It was not, those houses were, however many hundreds of years ago were houses. When you start to look at what this building type is, you tend to see it more on Main Street. When you look at the screen, you'll see on the upper right-hand side, that's the corner of Vine and Main, and you have a 3-story building that's right next to a 2-story building. It's part of what's there. Now, these all have gable roofs on them. And if you look at the third picture down on the right, that's also the other corner of mine. That I didn't do a measurement of it, but I would wonder whether that would fall under the height ordinance. By the time you have the raised porch, 3 stories and a hip roof and a gable roof. So, that's one thing. I think the picture above it, that building, if I made the roofs, the soffits or the cornices all would be the same. It would not be too far off of that. I mean, as far as what it is, I mean, I have more windows, and that is a brick building, which is why, I'm sure that's a masonry building, from the get-go. So, more, and honestly, when I look at that, I don't, from a historic perspective, I understand that has history, but, I don't see, again, I'm gonna be my own, but I mean, it's like, I think the black van that I have better represents what something could be than looking at that second picture, which really has some detail, some trim detail to it, but when you look at it from a distance, it just looks like a white line that just stops and then goes up to 2 stories of brick. I think what I have has a little more interest, but if that's what historic Flemington could be or is, then, you know, that's something, you know, that
Okay,
we
so
can look at.
let me ask another question. Understanding that where this site is located as an anchor to what has become the Stengel Arts and Culture District, did you consider the buildings across the street where we've got a series of retail that were built on top of the old train tracks? Did you consider the Lone Eagle building and the recent expansion of that facility? Did you consider the renovation of the building that has what we'll still call Bluefish Grill, the old Stengel buildings there? How does your design speak to those projects that are along that corridor in Stengel?
Again, we're looking at, there's 2 different things. There's materials and then there's size. Most of those are 1 story, right? So I don't know that they compare.
I'm talking, what I'm asking about is the cohesiveness of the district, and this is an anchor. This project would serve as an anchor at the north end of this district, and the new construction, newer construction that was along Stengel on the east side of Stengel. The further down the Lone Eagle Brewery plus the recent expansion with those new facilities look different than what's being proposed here. No?
Well, you know, the funny thing is that if you thought about, I thought about this today, I'm like, you know, I would wonder if Stengel, if it wasn't there, would that be something that could be approved or would be approved today? Because it's radically different than everything else that's there too. It's the fact that it is the history that, you know, makes it what it is. But what it is a 1-story block building.
But that's something that certainly, since we have to come back before the board, that we'll take a look at those areas and those architectural features and take a look
So
at.
one last question then is, along mine, on some of the images that you have here, yet you mentioned porches, that's true. Have you considered canopies? Have you considered shutters?
We consider shutters and again, my opinion, but I think what I have looks better than a, you know, a fabric kind of.
But if that's something that the board is interested in.
I'm just asking a question. I don't
Certainly.
want to speak to the board.
If that's what certain board members are interested in, we'll certainly look at that issue.
Other members of the board with questions? So make sure I'm listening. Go ahead, Beth.
Just based on Hannah's questions, I had a couple of follow-ups. She was asking about sustainable roofing materials and have you considered incorporating a cool white roof, which is essentially a white paint or a white covering?
TPO is white. It comes that way. It's got the top surface is white. That's why so if you were to do it, you would either use EPDM, which is a black surface, or you would use TPO, which would be white. We're using white for that reason.
Okay, and so there will be a reduction in the heat element effect.
Absolutely.
Okay, and then there were questions regarding visibility of rooftop equipment, and I wonder if you're going to be submitting plans, you might include a roof plan. And I don't know if the board wants this level of information, but you could also ask for a visibility study for the rooftop mechanicals to determine if and where they might be visible from.
I've heard at least one. We normally take a break at 9. It is now 9:25. So if it's okay, we'll take a short break and then we'll have public questions for the architect. Okay, so we take a 5-ish minute break. Start with Jim. Start
Okay,
again.
well, I'll start with Mr. Campion.
Here.
You, Mr. Dashna,
Here.
Mr. Levitt,
Here.
Mr. Cook,
Here.
Ms. Weitzman,
Here,
Mr. Hill,
Yes,
Mr. Semino,
Here.
Mr. Eckel,
Here.
Ms. DiMario, here, Mr. Cho,
Sure.
all of our professionals.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so we are back in session, or I just want to make sure there were no other questions from board members. Ready for questions from members of the public? We are. All right, so members of the public wish to ask a question, please raise your hand. Please come forward. The microphone is over there. And again, I know you asked a question before, but please, you could name and address.
Sure. Nancy Connolly, 22-1 Canal Street. You're saying that these plans are gonna be revised and they're going to actually have a deck on the back. Is that correct? On the second floor?
Yes, on this, you're on Canal, right?
Yes.
So it would be on the side, not on the rear of the building. It's out of the rear of the building, but it's not out the rear property line. So.
But that side of the building faces Academy, correct? Academy Street?
Yeah.
Okay. So my question is what are you going to be using? What are you going to be using to make that deck? Is it going to be wood? Is it going to be?
It would be wood.
It would be wood.
Mhm.
Okay. The next question is, I guess, I don't know who this would go to. Is that what kind of vantage point does this give the homeowners in that, in those townhouses? Because now that they're no longer just Juliet terraces, that they're gonna be able to sit out there, what kind of vantage point would it be able to give to the backyards of the mountain?
I'm not sure how to answer that. I know what the question is. But I'm not sure how to answer.
I don't know if it's the right question to ask.
It's a perfectly legitimate question to ask. You're asking what folks on those decks in those 7 townhouses would be able to see.
Correct, because now you're changing, the leisure area of the backyard. So that it's no longer the privacy down at the bottom, just the patio. Whereas now they're going to be able to sit on the decks. So my question would be is what is their vantage point? To the backyard of the now. And also on the patio.
No, I think that's something that we will address when we do the other.
Yeah, we'll have to take a look at that for you.
Okay, thank you.
Other members of the public with questions? Steve, can you pass Lois the microphone so she doesn't have to?
Sure.
Lois Stewart.
I don't think it's part of it. I got that. I don't know.
No, just the folks who are on Zoom won't hear you if you.
I'm not seeing that.
You know what? We have, she can use that microphone if we could.
This fellow came into wire. Thank you, Frank.
Lois Stewart, Flemington Borough. I have concerns about the appearance of the building, and my question is, will you consider, since you're going to be coming back again, changes that will make this building a better fit for Flemington?
We will look at that. We're looking into that. We're looking at.
Because I think, are you aware that the master plan talks about, you know, things fitting in to the neighbor? So I think that that's something that this community is very desirous of. I was asking you about the windows. If you put those pictures up, you'll see the windows in the back building are different than the windows in the front building. And I want to know if the windows in the back building are going to be the same as the front building. About that one.
So
The whole,
how do I?
the whole thing, where you had the whole buildings, both of them, one hearing.
So the comment she's making is about the mutton bars that go in the individual panes of glass, or not the individual panes, but the individual windows themselves, the parts that break up. So the question she's asking, it has to do with whether or not each individual window has the bars that are in it, so that it matches what we have on the front building. The front building, we have it's more of a farmhouse style single, and this, I didn't show anything, but that will, as I mentioned, that will have that all the windows on all four sides.
So the testimony is that the windows in the rear building will match the windows in the front building.
As far as having that, the style of it being a double hung and having the mutton bars have the same style as what's in the front building. Okay. I mean, the sizes might be a little different.
Can we go to the pictures of the roof lines, please? Did you consider, now where we have the buildings in Flemington,
Oh, that's the end.
did you consider something of
Go
this
back.
nature where we would have a continuous roof line? And if not, would you consider something that would show a continuous roof line, either of this nature, or this is a very shallow pitch roof? Would you consider more traditional roof lines than the one that you show on the picture with those things sticking up on each end?
We're hearing, issues that have been raised, and we're gonna come back with revised architecture.
So the whole plan might be, will the whole plan be, not the layout, but I mean, the appearance of the buildings will be substantially different? Are you suggesting?
I'm suggesting that we're hearing comments and that, Mr. Kyle is hearing the comments, and we're gonna do a little bit more research and come back with something that hopefully will meet,
Or
concerns
acceptable?
raised. Yeah, I'm not saying that it's going to make everybody happy, because it's very subjective, and what you might like might be something that a board member might not like, and might not be something that my client might like. But we're listening to what's being said, and we're going to try and come up with revised architecturals that can make most people happy, or at least a little bit more happy.
Are you aware that Flemington is the second largest historic district in the state of New Jersey after Cape May, which is first? Well, that's why it's so important that we maintain our historical appearance and significance. Now, I wanted to ask again about the 7th unit on the back building. If the 7th unit was eliminated, how many feet would you be from the rear property line? And the requirement is 50? So you would only be 7 feet out of line instead of 27, is that correct?
Right. That's correct.
And-
That's correct.
And so will you
But
be
it's better
giving,
than the 4 feet that it is now.
but you're still not obeying our ordinance.
Pleasure.
So would you consider making that concession to this town so that we could have more greenery?
That's something I have to talk to the owner.
Well, will you explain to the owner, please, that people are desirous of more greenery? And that brings me to the front of the commercial building. Is that first floor going to be 2 units or 3? Because on the one plan it shows 2, but when you look at the front of the building, does it not encourage you to think that there are 3 units there?
There's 2 doors that are on 2 end corners.
Two commercial units.
There's 2 units.
There'll be 2 units in the building,
Yeah.
even though it looks like 3 from the external. Okay, and then shutters. board members, would you consider putting shutters on the,
That's one of the things that we're gonna look at when we go back for the redesign.
okay, thank you. Are there any other sustainability features other than you talked about the white roof, which would, of course, help with the heat island effect, but are there any other sustainability things of this project?
It's not,
I said, we said that in response to Mike's question about sustainability, we're gonna take a look at some of that, present additional testimony.
Thank you. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Other members of the public with questions? So that mic's not working. We're just gonna have you use this one.
Thanks. I'm about 22 Main Street. Two questions both about materials. For the townhouses, what is the exterior material being used on those?
it would be, it's the same as the front building, which would be hardy plank as a clapboard and brick.
Okay.
Where it shows on the drawing.
Okay, great. And then for, you have to put in perimeter fencing around the property, I understand?
That was something that was discussed with the engineer.
Right. So, what are the thoughts on the material to be used for that fencing, given that it's in the historic district?
We had already presented that, exhibit with respect to that fencing at the last meeting that was proposed. Pull that up if you need to, but that was another.
It was actually with a different witness, so I don't think he has it in front of him. I don't recall what the testimony was about the fencing.
Well, I kind of remember basically the idea was that it could be like a stone plastic fencing with a stone pattern. And yeah, and when I looked at the stone of that type of fencing by the brewery, and I don't know that if I, as a homeowner of Benell Street, wanted to put in that fencing, that the Historic Preservation Commission, I don't know what they would say. But looking at the guidelines, they certainly stress the use of wood, as a primary fencing
So
material.
now, so the submission of that exhibit at our last meeting happened after the HPC had a review. So I think that if we're talking about revisions, HPC is going to have to take a look at everything anyway. So I would imagine that we could ask them to weigh in on the fence as well.
Okay, great, thanks.
Other members of the public with questions? Okay, seeing none, it's 9:50. Do you want to call your planner or do you want to defer that until we find a chance to do the other stuff?
I think it makes sense to come back with some additional plan revisions and tidy that up and present that testimony before we present our plan.
I would say, if at all possible, I would like for if we're talking about changes to the design, because some of the comments here have been around the HPC review letter, if we could have the HPC take a look at it, that would be helpful, I think, for the board, because we're talking about changes. So, Dennis, when's the next HPC meeting?
Yeah, it's November, let's see, November 15th.
November 15th. So that would be after our next meeting. Is it possible for us to carry this to the 28th as opposed to the 14th so that we could have the time for your professionals to do the work and then our HPC to take a look at it?
That's fine.
So, please do. It's after Thanksgiving.
I don't know.
So what's the date
We're confirming. If not the 28th, we could push it to December.
Can we do, I have oral surgery that morning, which should be fun. So I might go on first, but we'll be able to talk on here.
So, Oregon Root Canal, okay. So we are going to carry this matter, no further notice to Tuesday, November 28th, 7 PM. Members of the public who want to be here, that'll be there. Any submitted plans, any revised submitted plans would have to obviously get to the board's professionals with enough time. And I'm going to ask, because for anyone members of the public that has interest in this, make sure that we have those with enough time so we can put them up on the website and folks can have a chance to take a look at them ahead of the hearing. That would be very much helpful, Bob.
Yeah, to Steve's question earlier, and going back to the last meeting, with Eric, there was gonna be changes to the stormwater design. It's gonna be designed under a different standard that they haven't used. I gathered from what Eric had said at the last meeting that they're gonna probably have to raise the grade of the site more to accommodate the differential. So there were some engineering issues going on here. If we're revising the plan and we wanna look at this holistically, we should have a sense of that. And I don't know how much the board is gonna wanna see in terms of the this issue of outside, the patios and the deck. I was kind of raising the question last time. Right now, the way this is proposed, the condominium unit is the building, but now we're talking about adding exterior space to the individual owner's use, whether that's ownership, in the ownership, if we're talking about subdivision, if we're gonna incorporate driveways in the front. A better, clear picture of what they're actually proposing, so if when the board gets around to acting on this, that there's a clear understanding of the basic parameters.
So if we could have either documentation or testimony or both on that, and something here, that'll be helpful. Yeah. Okay, good. All right, so we're carrying this to the 28th unless council has a major oral. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next item on the agenda is chair items. Sorry, public hearing for Wardsville. Sorry, I don't. Right, thank you. Okay.
The new notice was provided. Karen, we have jurisdiction with the new notice.
Okay, so item 11 on the agenda is the continuation of the public hearing for Wardsville Road Properties LLC application 2022-05, block 45, lots 11, 12, and 15, continued from September 12, 2023. We have received that there's new notice and we do have jurisdiction to proceed. However, at the request of the applicant, we are carrying this to our next meeting, Tuesday, November 14th, 7 PM here in Borough Hall. No further notice will be given. All right. Item 12, chair items. So at our next meeting, we have Wardsville. Being carried, we have hopefully the resolutions for 78 Church and 13 Brown.
And for 73 East Main.
And 73 East Main. And it sounds like, what's it? 53 East Main. 53, yeah, 53. 53 East Main, the amended resolution. Less Wellness is, what did they say?
They said November 28th.
They said the 28th. Okay.
So we have a presentation by the HBC for the historic district.
Is on the 28th also?
14th.
The 14th. So next meeting is the HBC presentation. I know it's the league.
Well, I can say two things. Are we expecting revised plans on those?
Yes, we are.
Which we haven't seen yet.
And they're gonna
But
be.
they've requested the 14th to be continued to, which is 3 weeks from.
I anticipate those are gonna be significant provisions. Which means if you expect to have a report, you're gonna need something more than a 10-day or 2 weeks or whatever.
I've let them know that. The request was to November 14th.
I'm gonna be honest with you, like, if they don't get these plans into the next week or so, it's gonna be really hard.
I can let them know.
It's gonna be really hard for us because this is not a trivial application.
And not that it matters, I won't be here on the 14th for all some representative.
That's okay. All right, the only other thing, oh, apparently there's also gonna be sorry, now you know, this is great, thank you. We just got a, application from Chick-fil-A, which they want to do completeness, if
Well, they do
necessary. What does
completeness.
that mean? That says if necessary. Oh, received, I'm sorry.
No, I
that's-
think
no, that's
certification was
certification.
if necessary.
Sorry.
Chick-fil-A, we received them yesterday. I wanted to consult with Bob because he usually does completeness. It is 3 weeks away. But it has the league and that's just tentative at this point.
Okay.
So I was just looking for some direction from the board.
considering we have a couple of things on the 28th, I would hate to have to push them to December for completeness if we can get it done to the 14th, but I don't know the extent of what's being proposed.
That it was a very large set of plans.
But
Maybe outside. You know, when it came in, when it.
Yesterday,
Hey, I got mine tonight,
right?
but this afternoon, that's.
I don't know, let me look at when December's meeting is, but.
December
And did they submit
12th.
digitally too, I think?
What's that?
Did they submit digitally?
No, they did not. I have to ask them
2 days, 3 days.
if they went to the December 12th.
December.
so we kind of have to do
Well,
it.
we could do completeness on the 28th. I mean,
Yeah.
completeness.
We could do
doesn't take
completeness
that
on the
long.
20th. Yeah, we could. We absolutely could. That's true.
I mean,
Okay.
we do have less wellness and we have.
And we have this.
And Central Station.
Let's,
And Mecca.
yeah, it's, well, this is ends of the year, so it's happens. Okay, let's put Chick-fil-A tentatively on the 14th, but if Bob, would you have a chance to look at it? If you realize if it's gonna be more than just a quick.
I'll be honest with you, completeness on that, I don't think it's gonna be difficult because they're resubmitting a lot of their old, I mean, I got a stack of plans and there's just a lot of detail. I'm hard pressed to think that there's gonna be a completeness issue, but I haven't looked at it.
Alright, so we should
do that.
let's do it on the 14th, and if it's a problem, we'll push it if we have to. I'd rather move that one. I'd rather move applicants forward if we can. Yeah. The only other thing that I had question was, where are we with Millie's brunch and that?
There's been some back and forth and revised plans. There was a site meeting out there. It's the minutia of detail with the frontage improvements. There was a site meeting. They're coming back with revised plans. They're gonna handle, because the borough's in the process of overlaying streets or having the gas company overlay streets. So they're gonna attend maybe Mike Street, so it's better, but the site meeting they had, they're gonna come back with revised plans to address some of the technical issues just associated with the curb and sidewalk. And then they're gonna construct that under a road opening issue with DPW. The revised plans, they have to go into that, but not today, have to go through that, but I think
I did. Okay, because this one seems to be like taking longer than it ought to.
Yeah. They came in, I think in June, was comment letter I did on it, back then, and then they just came back maybe 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, I forget. I did another review letter, and then they said, well, let's just have a site meeting, because it's taking too long going back and forth between the issuing letters and then coming back with questions. But their objective was to do, like I said, to kind of split it up and do the public improvements under a street opening permit. But they have to make sure it coordinates with what they're doing on the site.
When do they expect to submit new plans? Do they indicate?
I have a new set that came in the other day, in response to the site meeting. But
Are they sending them to me as well?
I don't think that's, I think the earlier set went to you, but I don't think this set.
Yeah, to answer your question from my perspective, I'm getting ready to issue an updated compliance report, resolution compliance report. And I guess it seems as if maybe there's no reason to wait for new plans to come in. If they're just.
It's gonna, what they're changing relates to the street.
Okay.
The width of the sidewalk and the setback and yeah.
Okay, if they're still non-compliant, I'll reach out and see if there's something coming.
Okay, good. And I know there was an issue because they're trying to coordinate the Main Street work. I think it's I cited structure, so, okay. All right, that was just one, I just wanted to check on that one. Any other, chair items?
The only thing I can think of is Kara, I'm assuming the Circle Sign folks are still ghosting us.
So the Circle Sign folks are ghosting us. However, I'm aggravated and trying to make a little bit of headway. I did search on the DOT permits. The only one, like, they post them as to, it's like 500 and some odd pages, and they do it for years. The last note I did find was one that was published in January of 2021. I said, this year, I'm going to do an open request and get copies of it from 19 through today to make sure they were consistent. But in doing that, there were 2 permits that were on the page in 2021. One of them was for the other billboard that you approved, and one of them was for this LLC, and it's unfortunately not in this article that I have here. I was just looking for it. But when I went and I looked at that name of the LLC, it is a catalyst LLC. So it's in Bushbound. And I pulled up an article from September 14th of this year, where Mount Laurel, who had hired them to complete their EMS headquarters, was issued a default notice because they have not completed, not built their sign, their living sign. I could circulate a copy of this to everybody, but clearly there's a issue. So, and I think if and this I did, maybe an hour before I came here, I'm sure if I started digging a little bit deeper, this may go. So, I'll see what else I can find, I'll circulate it, I'll have Eileen distribute it, but that's where we are, and if there's a permit issue, that gives us the next level of being able to do something.
Okay, like I said, my objective is to understand the C of O versus their escrow. And I guess from a layperson perspective, I want to use their money. I want to go fix their site. And I want to know how to do it legally. So.
Yeah. Understood.
Any other chair items? Okay, bills were circulated before the meeting. Can I get a motion on the bills?
So move. Cup.
Mr. Cook?
Yes.
Mr. Levitt?
Yes.
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Dawson?
Yes.
Ms. Weitzman?
Yes.
No?
Yes,
Nino?
Yes.
Mr. Apple?
Yes.
Oh, and Ms. DeMarco? DeMario, sorry.
All right, professional reports, attorney,
Nothing else, that was the only thing I was gonna.
Bob,
No.
Beth,
No.
Jay,
No.
good. Any need to go to executive session? Motion to adjourn?
So move. Cup.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
bye.